political solution.
Before we came on air, I spoke to the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. Congress has recently restricted trade privileges extended to Ethiopia, and I asked him what difference, if any, they'd make.
Well, these are very recent. The president issued an executive order on September 17th that provided a framework for sanctions on those who undermine peace and security in Ethiopia, and sanctioned Eritrean entities last week, and gave notice to Ethiopia that as of January 1st, it would no longer be eligible for the trade benefits under the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act. So this is all coming together at this moment. It is my hope that it will move the parties to understand that this is not a conflict that has a military end, but one that needs to be dealt with through negotiation and a countrywide engagement.
How have the country's leaders responded to that move from the Biden administration?
Well, we have yet to see it ultimately lead to a change of course. But of course, these are relatively nascent actions that are taken. I'm very happy to see Secretary of State Blinken in Africa engaged with the issue of Ethiopia as a primary element of his visit to the continent. I think it's incredibly important to organize, support, and multilateralize our efforts to try to bring an end to the tragedy that is happening in Ethiopia.
Well, you first called on both sides in this conflict to de-escalate more than a year ago. The situation has only gotten worse since. Realistically, how much leverage does the U.S. really have in the region?
It's a challenge when we go to the UN Security Council to multilateralize our efforts as it relates both to the Ethiopian government, as it relates to the Eritreans, and China and Russia ultimately will not allow us to move forward with the type of actions that the United Nations could impose to change the dynamics and stop the loss of life.
You said it's important to impress upon the authorities in Ethiopia that this conflict doesn't have a military end. But can you see any scenario that demands that the U.S. or an international coalition will need to actively intervene on the ground to prevent this from further spiraling out of control?
I think the only way in which that happens is if there is an African Union initiative or a United Nations initiative to do so. But what we are witnessing in Tigray, what we are seeing is undeniably similar to what we saw in Darfur. And the world should not be willing to allow this to continue, ignore it, and turn a blind eye.
Well, we should note one former U.S. ambassador to Ethiopia has called this situation Rwanda-esque. It's also been noted that the Biden administration has stopped short of calling what's going on a genocide. Senator, you're the chairman of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. You know words matter. Do you believe a genocide is underway in the region?
Yes, and I have said so. And as we see a genocide unfolding, we need to do everything we can to stop it, and we need to call it as such. If the phrase that we use, never again, is to have any meaning, when a genocide is being committed, it needs to be recognized as such in the moment, not for history, in the moment, and then there need to be actions that seek to stop the genocide from continuing to take place.
An investigation by the UN and Ethiopia's Human Rights Commission found that both sides in this conflict have committed, quote, violations of international human rights, humanitarian and refugee law, some of which may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. What does accountability look like in this case, whether it's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed or it's people on the other side of the conflict?
Well, there are no white knights or angels in this conflict. It seems to me that all parties have been destructive. What is clear that a political contest has become a deadly armed conflict that has cost the lives of too many. And so the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights released a report that found that war crimes and crimes against humanity may have been committed by all parties to the conflicts. And so it seems to me that those who participated in war crimes need to be tried for it.
That's my conversation with Senator Bob Menendez, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He's a Democrat from New Jersey. I'd